Vanessa Brooks didn't need an alarm anymore. Her body had learned the rhythm of silence. At 7:43 p.m., just as the last whispers of day died behind the skyscrapers of Manhattan, she stepped into the lobby of Hawthorne Capital, mop, gloves, and quiet dignity in tow. She was 42, a black woman with eyes that held stories no one had bothered to ask. Her uniform was standard issue, navy, unflattering, starch stiff at the collar. But her gait was not. She moved like someone who used to be more, and in some forgotten chapter of her life, she was. She arrived early for her night shift, not because she was desperate for overtime. The company didn't offer that anyway, but because for 20 uninterrupted minutes each evening, she could slip into the 43rd floor boardroom alone. A room designed for men who brokered power over truffle risottos and brushed shoulders with senators. It was there, among the marble table and the digital whiteboard, that Vanessa found her ritual. She'd clean the smudges from the walls, align the chairs, and, if she had time, study the whiteboard notes. Sometimes they left diagrams, other times equations. It reminded her of what she used to be. Back then, before pregnancy, before eviction, before her name became anonymous, she was a rising star in applied mathematics at Princeton. And then, life happened. On a Tuesday night in late October, Vanessa entered the boardroom and froze. Formulas, numbers, fractals, and hedges. Someone had left projections about synthetic arbitrage. But something was off. A misaligned coefficient. An error that could cost someone billions if it went unchecked. She stood still, hands trembling. Then, almost without thinking, she reached for the chalk left beside the smart screen. With a grace she hadn't used in years, Vanessa erased 3 symbols and replaced them with 6. Elegant, precise. She should have stopped there, but she didn't. She added a side note. Double-check LBO models under current interest drift. You're over-leveraged. And left. The next morning, she found a pale yellow warning slip in her locker. "Do not touch what does not concern you," it read. Signed by her manager, Ellen Fraser. Typed in bold Arial. No salutation. Vanessa said nothing. Of course she didn't. What could she say? That once she lectured on nonlinear systems to second years at Princeton? That the only reason she mopped floors instead of solving problems was because her department refused to hold her place when she became a single mother. That after 6 years, 3 part-time jobs, and a university that filed her out like waste, she still dreamed in variables. No one at Hawthorne Capital asked about her dreams. They asked if the bins were emptied and whether the glass doors were streak-free. But someone did notice. Michael Hawthorne, 38, the company's elusive founder, returned from a trip to Zurich and held a private strategy session that same night. He saw the equation on the board, the correction, the delicate scrawl that was not from any of his analysts. He asked his team, "Who wrote this?" They stared blankly. No one claimed it. He shrugged. "Leave it. Let's see what this mystery mind does next." Over the next 3 nights, Vanessa returned. She never intended to write again, but something drew her to it. The weight of what was unsaid, the magnetic pull of unfulfilled purpose. She didn't know she was being watched. Each evening, Hawthorne instructed security to leave the boardroom camera running, not the regular footage. a private, high-res feed only he could access. He studied it alone, fascinated. The second night, new notes appeared. Model this under recession stress test. 3.1% fail likelihood. By the third night, a full strategic counter was laid out. Annotated. Efficient. He was convinced now this wasn't luck or guessing. This was someone with vision. And so, on the fourth night, he came early. No entourage, no assistance, no tailored suit even. He hid behind the inner glass partition of the boardroom, lights off, just a sliver of city glow illuminating the space. At 8:05 p.m., she arrived. Vanessa didn't notice him. She moved as always, quiet, graceful. She cleaned first, humming something barely audible. Then, when the room was spotless, she stepped to the board. She erased a section of a capital stack breakdown, wrote her own variant. Faster capital rotation, lower risk, less equity dilution. She stood back, tilting her head, nodded once. Michael Hawthorne saw everything. The woman with the mop was a mathematician. He stepped out of the shadows just as she turned to leave. "Excuse me," he said. Vanessa stopped cold. She turned slowly, eyes wide, mouth parting slightly in disbelief. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean, Did you write that?" he asked, pointing at the board. "I'll leave," she whispered. "I didn't touch anything, just the board." "I'm not asking to scold you," he said softly. "I'm asking because your correction just saved us $8.2 million in mispriced risk." She blinked. "What's your name?" he asked. "Vanessa. Vanessa Brooks." He nodded. "Where did you learn to do that?" Vanessa hesitated. Then finally, "Princeton. I studied mathematical finance. Almost finished. I was a year from graduation when I had my daughter. I couldn't afford to stay." Michael didn't speak for a full minute. Then he looked again at the board. "You said almost finished." "Yes." "Why did you never apply here?" Vanessa gave a short, bitter laugh. "I did. 4 times. Once for an analyst internship. Twice for data entry. 1 time for a receptionist. I never got a call back." He stared at her like she'd said something incomprehensible. "Did you list Princeton on the application?" "I did. I even attached a letter from Professor Lindell. He supervised my thesis on adaptive volatility modeling." He rubbed his chin. "Wait here," he said. She thought he was going to call security, or HR, or worse, Ellen Fraser. But 10 minutes later, she was in his office, on the 49th floor, a floor she had only ever mopped, never entered. He opened her resume. It had been flagged as overqualified by the system, auto-sorted into the miscellaneous file, unreviewed. He read it now and kept reading. When he looked up, Vanessa was still standing, stiff. "Would you explain this model to me?" he asked, pointing at a printout of her board corrections. She stepped forward, slowly, unsure. Then, with the confidence of a woman who used to teach this stuff, she began to explain. First, cautiously, then fluently. His expression changed. His eyes lit up. "You just solved a pricing dilemma we've been wrestling with for 6 months," he said. She said nothing. He reached across the table. "Ms. Brooks, how would you feel about leading a new initiative? Something we're calling Applied Risk Intelligence Lab. You'd have a team, a salary, a nameplate on a door. Vanessa stared. "You want me to what?" "I want you to stop cleaning my floors and start fixing my company." The next morning, the janitor's locker was empty, but a new name appeared on the company's internal directory. Dr. Vanessa Brooks, Director, Internal Analytics Lab. The viral video of her first company town hall spread like wildfire. She stood at the same board she used to mop around and said, "Knowledge doesn't die inside people. Sometimes it just gathers dust." And in the final scene of that first week, Vanessa, now in heels, blazer, and badge, walked a group of interns into the same boardroom she once scrubbed in silence. Her story wasn't just a comeback. It was a recalibration of what talent looks like when no one is watching. The storm didn't come right away. For 3 days, Vanessa Brooks lived in a daze, but not the kind born of confusion. This was clarity, finally returned to her after years of being muted. Her ID badge now beeped on the executive elevator. She had a desk, a real desk, with a nameplate and a view of the skyline. The first time she saw her new office, she'd closed the door quietly and just stood there, fingers trailing along the smooth mahogany edge. Not one person said "janitor," not even in jest, because no one dared. Michael Hawthorne had made sure of that. The official internal memo labeled her appointment as a strategic shift toward uncovering overlooked potential. Unofficially, word traveled faster than a Bloomberg terminal that the woman who used to mop floors now ran numbers the C-suite couldn't even follow. Some executives applauded the move. Others smiled and sharpened their knives in silence. Vanessa noticed the stares, the sudden hush when she walked into a room, the way Ellen Fraser, her former supervisor, wouldn't make eye contact in the elevator. Vanessa didn't care. She had a mission now, and her first target, the AI-driven risk engine the company had sunk $12 million into, an engine that, to her horror, was full of flawed assumptions. She pulled the raw data late at night, scrolling for hours until her eyes ached. On the third evening, she found it, an embedded weighting algorithm that prioritized short-term return over long-term solvency. It was elegant, dangerous, and hidden. When she traced it back, she found the name Justin Rimmer, Vice President of Quantitative Analysis, Ivy League, polished smile, and, she realized, wholly unqualified for the role he held. The next morning, she walked straight into Hawthorne's office. "I need you to see something," she said, laying the printouts on his desk. He studied the papers, brow furrowing. "This can't be right," he murmured. "We based 2 rounds of funding models on this." "It's right," she said quietly. "And it's not just an error. It's designed to inflate short-term gains and hide volatility risk. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." Michael looked up sharply. "Justin." She nodded. "I need access to the sandbox server and 3 of the audit logs. I want to trace all the iterations." He stared at her, then leaned back. "You're not afraid to go after a VP in your first week?" Vanessa met his gaze. "I've been underestimated long enough to know exactly when someone's faking genius. I'm not here to make friends." He smiled, not mockingly, but with admiration. "Then let's shake some trees." 2 hours later, she had full system access. 3 more after that, she had the logs, and by midnight, she had everything she needed. Justin's code rewrites weren't just sloppy, they were manipulative. The patterns were designed to trigger bonus thresholds by misclassifying debt. By morning, she had built a 12-slide presentation and emailed it to Michael. By 10 a.m., a closed-door meeting was scheduled. Justin arrived 5 minutes late, coffee in hand, eyebrows raised when he saw Vanessa already seated at the head of the table. "Did someone reschedule the janitorial committee?" he quipped, flashing teeth too white to be natural. She didn't even blink. Michael entered. The door closed. The presentation was brutal. Slide by slide, Vanessa dismantled the model. "This weighting scheme here," she said, laser pointer steady, "funnels capital into projects that should have failed risk checks. But they didn't, because the thresholds were tampered with." Justin's smirk faded by slide 4. By slide 7, his jaw had clenched. By slide 12, he looked like he might be sick. "This is defamation," he said finally, standing. "You don't even have the technical—" "I taught this algorithm," Vanessa interrupted. "I published on it. At Princeton." Silence. Michael looked at Justin. "You can resign, or I can have the audit team subpoena your development logs. Your call." Justin left without another word. Vanessa sat very still, breathing slowly. "Nice work," Michael said after a pause. "But you know this isn't over." "I know." And she did, because the moment she took that seat, the war began. Not a war of guns, but of emails with copied stakeholders, calendar meetings mysteriously rescheduled, data inadvertently deleted from shared folders, the soft sabotage of the threatened. Vanessa didn't break. She adapted. She worked late, earlier, weekends, slept on the office couch sometimes. Her daughter, 17-year-old Ava, began noticing. "You're not home again," Ava said one night over FaceTime, her voice tight. "You promised you'd help me with my FAFSA." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. I just need this week." "You always need one more week." That cut deeper than any executive glare ever could. The next morning, Vanessa brought Ava to the office. She sat her daughter at the back of the lab, gave her headphones and a laptop and a promise. "I'll be done by 5. Ava watched silently as her mother led a team of analysts, broke down volatility modeling, mentored a junior associate, and built a predictive heat map that forecasted credit stress with uncanny accuracy. At 5:02, Vanessa walked Ava to the elevator. "You're incredible," Ava said quietly, pressing the down button. "I'm trying to be." "No, you already are. I just wish the world had seen it sooner." That night, Michael sent Vanessa a text. "Saw your daughter. She's proud of you. You should be too." Vanessa didn't reply, but she sat on her couch, holding that message like it was made of glass. 3 days later, HR called. "Vanessa, you're being nominated for the Hawthorne Innovation Award. Michael personally put in your name." "I didn't even know I was eligible." "You weren't," the HR manager said dryly. "Until this year. Policy changed." She accepted with the calm of someone who'd survived storms far worse than a stage spotlight. But the night before the gala, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, hands shaking, as she fastened a necklace she hadn't worn since her 20s. Silver. Modest, but meaningful. Her reflection wasn't just a woman in a dress. It was a mathematician, rediscovered. At the event, Michael introduced her. She went from janitor to director in less than 30 days. But let me be clear, She didn't rise because of charity. She rose because of brilliance, because talent doesn't die. It waits. Thunderous applause. Vanessa stepped up. "I used to clean this building," she began. "And every night I walked past rooms filled with conversations I was once trained to lead." She paused. "I didn't stop knowing math just because I wore gloves instead of heels. I didn't stop being valuable because life knocked me down. Talent isn't gone. It's buried. It's ignored. It's locked behind zip codes and bias and fear." The room was dead silent. Second chances aren't charity. They're justice. And just like that, she stepped into her next chapter, not as a woman trying to earn her place, but as a woman redefining the table itself. The boardroom smelled different now. Vanessa Brooks could still remember the scent it used to carry: cold air conditioning, citrus disinfectant, and polished ambition. Back when she cleaned it at night, the room always felt like it belonged to someone else. Now, under the morning light, it belonged to no one. Or perhaps, finally, to her. 6 months had passed since the night Michael Hawthorne stepped out of the shadows. 6 months since her world cracked open. Now she stood at the head of that room, wearing a navy suit cut to precision, her natural hair twisted into a crown. No gloves, no mop, only her voice, her mind, and a team of 15 young analysts, many of whom looked more like her than the floor they once feared to step across. "I want you to forget everything you learned about staying quiet," she told the interns on their first day. "The old model of success was designed to make you feel grateful for access. You're here to change things, so speak, challenge, ask, be loud if you have to." The youngest of them, a girl named Imani, with fire in her eyes, raised a hand. "Is it true you used to clean this room?" Vanessa smiled. "Yes." "Was it hard?" "Getting people to listen." The smile didn't fade, but it deepened. "They never listened. I had to make them hear me anyway." The lab was thriving. Under Vanessa's leadership, Hawthorne Capital's new risk protocols were being adopted by 2 partner firms. Analysts once dismissed for lacking polish were now celebrated for cutting through noise with clarity. And profits, the one language even the skeptics couldn't argue with, were rising steadily. But with progress came pressure and shadows. One night, after everyone else had gone, Michael called Vanessa into his office. "I need to show you something," he said, unlocking his screen. "I found this in an internal email string between 2 board members. They've been quietly questioning your promotion. One of them called it, and I quote, 'optics over merit.'" Vanessa inhaled sharply. "I thought we proved merit 6 times over." "We did. That's not the point. People like us, we don't get to be average. We have to be undeniable." She sat in silence for a moment, then said, "I'm not angry." Michael raised an eyebrow. "I'm just tired. Not from fighting, from always needing to." He nodded slowly. "Then let me offer a solution. I want you to come with me to London. We're opening a new innovation hub. I need someone to lead it, build it from the ground up, on your terms." Vanessa looked out the window. Manhattan sparkled beneath them like a living grid of endless opportunity and endless scrutiny. "And if I say no, then you stay here. Keep changing this place. Your choice, Vanessa. You've earned it." That night, she went home to Ava, who was up late sketching on her iPad. "There's a decision I have to make," Vanessa said, sitting beside her on the couch. "London?" Ava guessed, without looking up. "Hawthorne's been planning that for a while." Vanessa blinked. "You knew?" "He mentioned it at the awards gala. Said he was trying to find someone brilliant enough to launch it." "And you think I should go?" "I think—" Ava finally looked at her. "You once told me we don't run from rooms. We lead them. Maybe it's not about staying or leaving. Maybe it's just about knowing the door's already open." Vanessa kissed her daughter's forehead. The next morning, she made her choice. She stayed, and instead of leaving the problem, she decided to face it head on. Vanessa began hosting open innovation panels every Friday, mandatory for all departments. She invited critics. She encouraged disagreement. She tore down the hierarchy of voices that had once drowned her out. Some resisted, but others bloomed. One Friday, a new janitor, a young Dominican woman named Esme, lingered at the edge of the conference space, watching from behind the catering table. Vanessa spotted her. "Come in," she said. Esme froze. "You're just brilliant. You just haven't been asked to show it yet. Sit." The room was silent as the young woman hesitantly stepped forward. Vanessa handed her a notepad. That moment, that single gesture, would be written about in Forbes a year later as the origin point of Hawthorne Capital's most diverse hiring pipeline in company history. It wasn't just about second chances anymore. It was about building a new system where first chances were never denied in the first place. One day, a camera crew came, an independent documentary team doing a piece called Structures of Silence. They interviewed Vanessa in her office. "Why do you think you were overlooked for so long?" the journalist asked. Vanessa didn't flinch, because potential without privilege is often invisible. "And what do you say to young women who see your story and feel inspired?" "I say, remember this, your value isn't tied to the title you hold. It's in your capacity to keep learning, to keep knowing, even when the world forgets to ask." That soundbite went viral. 2 million views in 3 days. Ava cried watching it, and Michael, watching from the London office where he'd relocated a month prior, sent her a message. "You're rewriting more than policy. You're rewriting what power looks like." Years later, they would name the training program after her, the Brooks Fellowship, designed to find hidden minds across all sectors, custodial, cafeteria, warehouse, and give them pathways to lead. Vanessa never stopped returning to the boardroom, even when it was no longer necessary. Sometimes she walked through it alone, fingers brushing the walls, remembering who she had been when the world called her nobody. One morning, she stood in front of a new class of interns, Ava among them now, freshly admitted to Columbia's Business Analytics program, and just before she began the session, she paused. "Look around," she told them. "This room used to be the finish line. Now, it's just the starting point." And outside, the skyline shimmered, no longer unreachable, no longer cold, but warm, alive, built, finally, to hold the weight of everyone's brilliance, even those who once walked it in silence, mop in hand, truth in heart.